Welcome back to Unstable. This is the 21st episode, and we've got a great one for you. We've got a great one. My name is Jeff Steckel, also known as Big Steck. You can find me on X at Big Steck 88. I've got Justin, Kingmaker, DFF. He's our fantasy football guru. This is his third episode. How are you doing, man?
Man, doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. I think it's gone pretty good so far. I'm excited to get into more with our very special guest who's joining us today.
Absolutely. So we've got Andrew Moore on from Horseshoe Huddle, and we're very excited to have him. Really appreciate him taking the time to do this. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. Appreciate you guys having me on. Getting close to the season, so there's definitely a lot to talk about. I think we're less than 20 days now away from the Colts kicking off against the Houston Texans. So not very far away from actual meaningful football to talk about. But there's as always, there's always things to talk about in Colts country.
Oh yeah. We've had some little bit of news. Had their first the joint not first joint practice, joint practice with the Bengals. So that looks like a couple things went good for our defense.
Yep. So we're definitely going to talk about that. We're not going to pass over the Arizona game, but we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the Bengals. They had joint practice today. You're going to see this Wednesday, so I guess technically yesterday, but we did have practice for the upcoming Thursday night game against them. And I kind of want to dive into the Texans since we are, again, a few weeks away from that season opener. Before we get into all that, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. We want to hear from you. We love interacting. We love talking Colts football. And even if you're a fan of another team, we won't heckle you too bad. But we want to talk.
Yeah, definitely leave your questions. If you got any questions about anything, comment, share to all your friends. Fantasy football too, like you talked about. So share away.
Please. So we'll get right into it. We had Arizona, and we did win. It was 21-13. I think the run game looked really good. It's the backups, backups against backups, but the run game looked really solid, and I was happy to see that. What in that game did you see, Andrew, that I guess surprised you?
Yeah, I think obviously what you talked about, the run game really helped lead the Colts to victory. I mean, you see Tyler Goodson and Evan Hall really in that battle for the running back 3 position. Both those guys had really good games. And then Xavier Scott, the guy who's probably not going to make the roster, but a prime candidate for the practice squad, comes out there, actually leads the team in rushing, gets a touchdown. Really good outing for Xavier Scott. And then you can't forget about Jason Bean. Jason Bean was using his athletic ability to run as well as Sam Ellinger. So you really had it from a bunch of different parties were able to contribute to that running game for the Colts. I think they had 166 yards on the ground, average nearly 5 yards per carry. Really good showing out of Arizona. But I think the biggest thing that really stood out to me was Nick Cross. Nick Cross is in this tight battle for the starting safety spot with Rodney Thomas II, Ronnie Harrison Jr. There was all that talk last week, and I saw Colts fans up in arms about not going and getting Justin Simmons, and the Colts might do it again where they put too much confidence in a guy that really has no history and is just unproven. Well, Nick Cross went out there on Saturday night and honestly put in one of his best performances since the Colts drafted him in the 3rd round of the 2022 draft. He comes out and really shows out for this team. I think he had 5 tackles, a tackle for loss, and just a little bit over a quarter. And he mostly played at the strong safety position, which I thought was interesting as well. And I think could play a certain role in this defense, whether the Colts end up moving Julian Blackmon back to free safety, or if they trust Nick Cross enough where it can be mix and match, where Julian can go back down to strong safety and they trust Nick Cross at free safety, but then Nick Cross can also play strong safety, and it just kind of either depends on the opponent, depends on the situation of the game. So I think Gus Bradley and Ron Miles can play around with that, but I think that performance was definitely something that Nick Cross really needed, because of everything that's gone on, being involved in the whole Josh Downs injury debacle, not really owning up to that in the press conference, which, I mean, I'm a part of the media, but I don't think he owed the media an explanation. But he also didn't show any remorse. That's just not a good look. And I don't think the
No.
Colts thought internally it was a good look either. So Nick Cross really needed that game. I understand it's against the backups, but at the same time, he looked like the best player on the field, which if you're a starter playing out there at that time, that's what you should look like.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, whether it's backups or not, NFL players are NFL players. I mean, these are still the best in the world, no doubt. But I'm with you. Cross definitely needed this after the whole down situation. I think a lot of people are kind of, I wouldn't say forgetting about that, but kind of give him a little pass for now, as long as he keeps it up.
For sure. I also wanted to ask about LaQuan Treadwell. He, kind of a sailing the seas, not really finding his footing anywhere. Kind of a big, I guess to this point, a little bit of a disappointment in the NFL. Comes into this game and I think had a really good outing. I don't necessarily know. I felt like he was brought in as kind of a camp body. Do you think there might be a little bit more to him now, or is he? Do you think he has a chance to make the final cut?
I don't think so. I think the Colts are pretty set with their 6 wide receivers. Each one plays a role. Obviously, you have the top 4 in Pittman, Pierce, Downs, and Mitchell. Anthony Gould is the 5th round pick out of Oregon State. His already established a role with the team. And then Ashton Dulin. Ashton Dulin is your core special teamer, and he can really play all 3 wide receiver spots as well. And Laquan Treadwell, while he's done really well in the preseason, I think it just comes down to it's a numbers game, and then Treadwell doesn't really play special teams either. So that's a big knock against him, especially when you're in that back end of the roster. Is he putting on a show? And do I think another team will potentially give him a shot? It wouldn't surprise me at all if on roster cut down day a team did claim him off waivers, or at least as he clears waivers, a team goes out there and wants to bring him in for a tryout. If not, I think he would be a really good addition to the Colts practice squad. But even beyond Laquan Treadwell, I think you're looking at the DJ Montgomerys and the Juwan Winfreys that probably have a better chance to make this roster than Laquan Treadwell, strictly because both those guys can play special teams. And when you're looking at the back end of your roster for those spots, especially at wide receiver, you got to play teams.
Yeah, you have to. It's very important. I mean, a lot of these young players, like you talked about, that's how they make the team, is by doing very well in special teams.
But I will admit, Laquan Treadwell definitely in the preseason has shown why he was a first-round pick and why multiple teams keep giving him chance after chance after chance. Yeah. The talent is there. He just really hasn't been able to put it all together.
Yeah, I think the Colts will be team number 6 out of 9 years. So it was kind of disappointing. I know from a fantasy aspect, yeah, he was going early in a lot of rookie drafts in Dynasty. Being a first-round pick, that holds a lot of water. And, yeah, it's pretty disappointing for Laquan Treadwell. Everybody's forgotten about him a long time ago. But, hey, best luck to him. Hope he does make a team, But like you said, we're pretty set at wide receiver right now. I really like our wide receiver room.
Likewise. So there's also a lot of talk. We made Matt Gay one of, I think he's still the highest paid kicker right now. And he's had some issues. Kicking. And that's after Specs, the previous year with Matt Ryan, it's got to make us nervous. I don't want to read
that contract they gave him either.
I mean, he was great with the Rams, but it's concerning. I didn't want to have to worry about the kicking game, and I feel like we're doing it again.
What's the trade market like on kickers nowadays?
It's not great. I mean, and yeah, the Colts did give him the biggest free agent contract for a kicker in NFL history. I think at this point he's about 4th or 5th, but still one of the highest paid kickers in the NFL. It doesn't seem like internally that the Colts really have any concern about Matt Gay and his leg. I definitely think that not having Rigoberto Sanchez in there and having Spencer Schrader hold while Matt Gay isn't going to come out and say it, that's kind of what we're here for. That definitely had an impact on it. And it wasn't like he wasn't hitting the ball well. He was just kind of getting it to go. It went left pretty much every single time.
I've noticed that.
I do think that having Sanchez back, Sanchez missed the game for the birth of his daughter. So Sanchez is back today at Bengals joint practice. Matt Gay was 6 for 6, including 3 from 50 plus. That was outdoors too. The Bengals practice they don't have really a practice facility. They just have outdoor practice fields.
Yeah.
So the Colts really don't have any concerns. Now, if this lingers into Thursday night and into week 1 and week 2, then I think you're going to see things ramp up. But as of right now, the Colts don't have any concerns with Matt Gay, and I think until proven otherwise or shown otherwise from Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard, Matt Gay's the kicker in Indianapolis. They've got full confidence.
Yeah, there shouldn't be any concern. I mean, Matt Gay's been around a while. He's done it. He knows what corrections he needs to make. And like you said, they were all going to the left. So that's an easy fix. It's not like they were all over the place. So it's not a mechanic issue. I have no doubts Matt Gay's going to get back in the lab, figure out what he's doing wrong, and get that done by week 1.
You hope. I don't want to have any more like, oh God, it's 40 yards. Is he going to make it? I don't want to think about the kicking game. I want to be past that.
That should be money, right? You expect that. It's a gimme, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We can't all have Justin Tuckers, I guess.
Be too expensive.
I think Colts fans are a little bit spoiled with all the years of Adam Vinatieri just being pretty much automatic from wherever on the field.
Yeah, going from Vanderjack to Vinatieri. Yeah, we're pretty spoiled. You're right.
I was going to say Vanderjagt, but after that Steelers debacle, it's hard to put him on the list.
When you have the franchise, when you have the franchise great calling him an idiot kicker, there's no coming back from that.
No.
There was one other thing in the Cardinals game that I noticed, and starters didn't play. Juju Brents did though, and that was it was a little odd. I didn't expect to see him. He was out there, ultimately got hurt. I don't know. I don't think he broke his nose, but he had some stitches. But him being out there just seemed weird to me. Is it? Are they just trying to get him reps, or is there more to this that they're just not really telling us?
Yeah, the reason that Juju Brents was out there is because he missed that first game against the Denver Broncos. He had a sore shoulder that Shane Steichen said if it was a regular season game, he would have been out there. They were just kind of being cautious with it. So they wanted to get him some reps because he missed that Broncos game, get him out there for a series or two. And unfortunately, didn't start out well as Juju Brents was called on a pass interference right away. But then he had some good reps. He really did. When you look at the film, he had some good reps. And what happened on the play is when he got hit, his visor got pushed back into his nose, causing a really big cut and some stitches. It hasn't been confirmed if it's broken or not. He did get quite a few stitches in his nose. Wasn't out there at practice today with the Bengals. Steichen said that they're bringing him back. They're not rushing things to bring him back, so I wouldn't expect to see Juju Brents out there on Thursday night either. But again, over 2 weeks until week 1, there's really no need to rush it back. Just let it heal, make sure it's all good to go, and I think Juju Brents should be suited up and out there at his normal right cornerback spot come week 1.
And double fortify that visor for the next game.
Definitely.
Put a couple more zip ties on there. Yeah, it was nice to be able to see some guys getting a lot of reps in the game, even though starters didn't play and everything like that. I think it was good for them to at least get some tape, especially guys that probably won't make the team, like Xavier Scott got 11 touches, 55 yards, I think, something like that. And I think that was good for him. I'm sure Shane Steichen just wanted to see the plays, not so much the players, but hey, are these plays going to work live? So, but it was still good to see some of these guys get a lot of reps as we test out some of our new offense.
Sure. So, is there a surprise player that you think could make the roster that maybe you didn't expect to make it? Going into training camp and whatnot. Is there a player that's really stood out to you that could actually make the cut?
On offense, I think it's Dalton Tucker. Dalton Tucker has been fantastic there at that right guard spot. And with the injuries to Wesley French, Josh Sills, Dalton Tucker is really on this cusp of making this roster. Because when you look at the depth pieces along the offensive line, obviously the 2 rookies, Matt Gonzalez, Tanner Bortolini, those guys are probably locks to make the roster. Blake Freeland as well. Then it kind of gets a numbers game. Is it Danny Pinter? Is it Dalton Tucker? Would it have been Josh Sills, Wesley French? 2 of those guys are on IR, and Dalton Tucker has outperformed Danny Pinter by quite a bit. So I think Dalton Tucker, the undrafted free agent out of Marshall, has a really good chance to be one of those interior depth guys on the Colts offensive line. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I would say Isaiah Land. The Achilles injury to Samson Ebukam really opened a door for another edge rusher. Your top four are set in stone and Pay, Latu, Lewis, and Odangbo. But there's the Colts are typically keep 9 to 10 guys on the defensive line. You're probably looking at 4 guys on the interior and maybe 5 guys on the edge. Isaiah Land, I think, has earned that. He's definitely outperformed guys like Jannard Avery, Titus Leo, and you look at his performance against the Cardinals. Land not only was tenacious as a pass rusher, he had some really good reps against the run as well. So I think Tucker on the offensive side and then Isaiah Land on the defensive side, those could be guys that you're not exactly expecting to make the roster, but when the final 53 is announced, their names are going to be on there.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I definitely like what I saw with Isaiah Land.
Sure.
He has some good depth for sure.
I feel like another one that could be on the cusp was Micah Abraham. I was really impressed with his play.
I think Micah Abraham's a lock. I think he has performed better than Chris Lamons has for that backup nickel spot, and Micah Abraham's got a nose for the football. So I think if you're looking for a backup nickel, it's obviously between Lamons and Abraham. The Colts have draft capital in Abraham, whereas they don't in Lamons, and Abraham has done more in the preseason and in training camp. Lamont has been largely unnoticed. So you kind of take a chance on those guys that they can force more turnovers. And Abraham already in his NFL career has shown that. And when you look at his college tape, I mean, all the past, I think he has a school record at Marshall for pass deflections. His father was a Pro Bowl cornerback in the NFL and had 30 interceptions as a pro. He's got good genes to go along with it. So wouldn't surprise me at all if Micah Abraham makes this roster as the backup nickel.
That'd be sweet. There's a little bit more injury news that came. I believe it was in the Arizona game. Why is it Jelani Woods? Jeez, I was on the Jelani Woods train.
Oh yeah, you were
going into training camp. I was like, man, he's going to be the tight end one, and now he might not even.
Mallory season, baby.
Jelani, he's going to miss time. He's having toe surgery, and they haven't really given a timeline for it. So I don't know if we see Jelani Woods in a Colts uniform anymore. What do you think?
This season, I'm not sure because it was a high, from what I've heard, it's a high grade turf toe injury that has required surgery. A lot of times, if you're getting surgery on a turf toe injury, that's at least 2 to 3 months. So, if that's the case, 2024 could be another lost season for Jelani Woods. I think what they'll do is they will use probably one of their, because of the new rule, you don't have to take a guy onto the 53-man roster and then place him on IR. There's 2 spots where you can place guys on IR on roster cutdown day and still keep them into the regular season. I think those spots probably go to Jelani Woods and Samson Ebukam, just on the outside chance that either one of those guys can return. Potentially Jelani Woods later in the season has probably a better chance than Ebukam does, but it seems like it's going to be at least a couple of months before we see Jelani Woods even close to returning. And it is a shame because there was a lot of hype around Woods from Colts fans coming into training camp. And honestly, throughout training camp, he has been a no-show. He's had plenty of opportunities, but he's had a lot of drops. And because of that, he really hasn't been able to make it out off the second team. He never once really pushed Kylan Granson for that move tight end spot or Mo Alley Cox for that inline spot. It's really been Granson, Mo Alley Cox, and Drew Ogletree, the top 3 tight ends, and then Jelani Woods is kind of back there with Will Mallory. So at this point, it looks like the Colts are going to go forward in the 2024 season with the same 4 tight ends that they did in 2023, with Granson and Mallory as the move guys and the inline guys being Alley Cox and Ogletree.
such a disappointment.
Yeah, even
Guys,
losing Woods, we still have a really nice depth at tight end. I mean, all the guys really do a good job at what they're doing. So losing, like if we were to lose Mo Alley Cox, I mean, we would be fine. Because the role is the same. The players are very similar in each one. Like you talked to move tight end and inline tight end. So I think losing Woods, it's one more depth piece, right? But now it's one less player that the offensive scheme has to worry about. Okay, now we have to add this person, get them reps and things like that.
Yeah, Woods definitely has the most potential out of any tight end on the roster, but he has not been able to put it together. And Kylan Granson is, for all the people clamoring that Woods should be over Kylan Granson, Granson has made a lot more plays in training camp, and he's a lot more trusted, not only by the coaches, but by Anthony Richardson as well. Granson has been Granson's been one of his security blankets throughout training camp.
Well, and quarterbacks, they're talking to those OCs and those tight end coaches, and they're going to listen. If that quarterback has more comfort with that tight end, then they're going to go with it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's just disappointing with his size and speed, man, the potential. Just not to really be able to see it. It's a disappointment.
It's like all the traits are perfect,
Yeah. I was all in on him, man, and now it's like oh well.
Poor guy. I feel for you. My boy Mallory's not getting a lot of play either, so
it's like I hope he heals up and comes back and he can prove his worth, but we'll see. So we will, I guess, go into more about the Bengals. Kind of a mixed bag from what I'm seeing in their joint practice. I'm seeing the defense did really well. Locked out Joe Burrow in that Bengals offense in the red zone. Like 10 plays in the red zone, didn't let him score. So I'm hearing great things about the defense. I'm hearing the Bengals defense kind of had their way with our offense. What did you see in it?
So starting with the defense, a lot of what Joe Burrow was able to complete were short passes. He was very efficient, but the Colts. The famous mantra with this Colts defense is always bend but don't break, and that's what they did. A lot of short passes by Joe Burrow. He really took what the defense gave them, but the Colts defense still made plays. I mean, Kwity Paye especially. Kwity Paye had 2 sacks on the day. Latu had a sack. So DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart made some stops in the run. Jalen Jones in the secondary was the one that really stood out, intercepting Joe Burrow twice, which is really good to see from Jalen Jones. A guy that a lot of people still are questioning whether he can be a starter for this Colts team. So it was a little back and forth from the defense, where Burrow would get some and then the Colts defense would get some. But going up against an offense that has the caliber of talent of Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, the Colts know what Zach Moss is capable of from what he did last year. Mike Gesicki had a big day, I know, for the Bengals offense, but again, he didn't score per se. So bend but don't break, definitely areas where the Colts need to clean up on offense, or I'm sorry, on defense. But overall, they held their own with the Cincinnati Bengals offense. Now, when you look at the Colts offense, kind of completely different story. Really, really started out rough for this Colts offense. I think Anthony Richardson started the day in the 11-on-11 period, 3 of 10. Just was not efficient at all. Anthony Richardson had some accuracy issues, was missing his receivers. The timing was off. The communication was off. And I got the Bengals defense was chirping a little bit and trying to get into Anthony Richardson's head, talking about how all he does is run. He can't find his receivers. He's just throwing to a spot. But then there was like a switch that flipped. And this is something that not only myself, but a lot of other people that cover the team have noticed about Anthony Richardson is when he is in the hurry up mode. I don't know if he is more relaxed or things are just going through his head quicker. He is so much more in control. He looks so much better when the Colts are in their hurry up mode. With that 2-minute drill, the offense is going quick. It's like Anthony Richardson isn't thinking. He's just going out there playing loose and playing football. So in the 2-minute drills to end practice, that's when you really saw Richardson in this offense take off. You saw the plays to Michael Pittman, to Alec Pierce over the middle, had a touchdown to A.D. Mitchell. And then I think in the final 2-minute period, he almost had another would-be touchdown to Mitchell. It was just outside of his grasp. Matt Gay ends up kicking a 50-yard field goal. But Richardson overall in the day, very up and down. Probably his most inconsistent practice of training camp. But again, that's going to happen. People need to still pump the brakes on the expectations of this guy. He's not a 6, 7, 8-year vet. He's not a Patrick Mahomes type of veteran. This guy started 4 games in the NFL. You're going to have performances this year where he absolutely blows the top off a stadium. And other performances, he's going to look like a rookie because he still is working through all of that. So very up and down day by Anthony Richardson, but I think you can be encouraged by the way that he finished the day. And again, really showing out in those 2-minute drills when the offense is sped up, and when the Colts are, or he's not necessarily having to think too much, just going out there and playing loose. And I think the Colts can use that to their advantage once we get to the real thing, once the Colts start showing their true offense, not the vanilla stuff that we're going to see on Thursday night and have seen in these preseason games. But I think that's something that Shane Steichen can go to if need be to really jumpstart this offense if they get into a funk.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, Richardson, you got to think that he's a natural athlete. When you put him in that situation like you're talking about, where in the 2-minute drill he just feels comfortable, I think it's because he's just out there being himself. He's not sitting here trying to think about all his reads and everything like that. He's just going out there, hey, 2-minute drill, let's just put some points on the board, right? I mean, he was raw coming out of college to begin with. We knew that. But all the boxes, I mean, not only did he check those boxes, he blew the boxes up. Anthony Richardson was a just ridiculous athlete, like very few that we've seen, right? I mean, some were saying he was more athletic than Lamar Jackson. I can't say that I agree, can't say I disagree, right? But as far as a specimen, the guy's amazing, but still really raw. So I agree with you. If he's still going to have rookie tendencies, that's fine. He played 4 games. Let's pump the brakes a little bit. Like you said, I think he's going to be fine. Just let him go be an athlete. And I think Shane Steichen's going to see that. Like, hey, we can adjust our playbook a little bit and let AR play with it and see what suits him, because they're still trying to figure him out. I mean, he missed some time with an injury, so that's time you're not getting with that offense, So it's going to help all this camp, all this preseason, and hopefully staying healthy. We should see a lot of good development from Anthony Richardson.
It also didn't help that the offensive line for the Colts today did get off to a rough start. 3 would-be sacks given up, 1 each by Bernard Ryman, Braden Smith, and Ryan Kelly. The Bengals defensive line and the Bengals were bringing pressure, and it was getting to Anthony Richardson. So when you take that into account, that's going to have an impact on any quarterback. So it just to start practice was not a good showing by the entire offense as a whole, not just Anthony Richardson, but it seemed like towards the back half of practice, they settled in. They kind of were able to turn things up a little bit, and then you saw the explosive Colts offense that we've seen multiple times throughout the summer, and a very efficient offense at that. So again, an up and down practice. The Bengals defense was definitely the winners in the first half, but then the Colts offense finished strong and got some momentum going to finish it off.
Yeah, the offensive line, I mean, it's very odd that you talked about that they allowed that. I think PFF has the Colts ranked number 3 right now, only behind the Lions and the Eagles. So I don't think that's gonna be a problem for us. Everybody has their off days, so I'm not really concerned about that. But those guys are all 2, 3 Pro Bowl potential outside of Quentin Nelson, obviously. But I'm not feeling too concerned about that. But that was very odd to hear that they're getting pass rushers through there.
Yeah. With Anthony Richardson, it's kind of like me when I have time I have ADHD. So if I have time to think about something, sometimes I'll rethink my strategy, what I'm doing. But when I get into that speed test, it's like, man, I nail it. It's like, so when if you're trying to change Anthony Richardson's game, force him to be a pocket passer, he's going to start overthinking stuff. So I feel like if they just kind of let the game come to him, let the play, develop, just let him, like you said, just kind of just ball out, do what he does. I think he'll become a lot more relaxed. You just gotta tailor that offense around his skill set and what he can do.
It's never worked out in the past where a coach wants to try and take a quarterback's natural ability away from him. We saw that firsthand back with Vince Young when he got drafted to the Titans. Jeff Fisher killed Vince Young. I mean, he tried to turn him into a pocket passer, and that's not what he was. That's not what he won a national championship on. So you can't do that. Steichen is a smart guy. We're very lucky to have him. I think he's going to understand, hey, Anthony Richardson's an athlete. Let him go be an athlete.
Well, that's the
We'll
thing.
win a lot of ball games that
And
way.
that's the thing about Steichen is he's not going to put Anthony Richardson in a box. This offense is tailored to the strengths of Anthony Richardson. If he was going to do that to Richardson and force him to be a pocket passer, which I think the thought that Richardson's a run first quarterback isn't correct in the first place, because Richardson never takes his eyes off of looking downfield. The guy is always pass first. He just is such a freak athlete, and his ability to run the football is quote unquote what he said is a superpower that people just automatically kind of assume that he is a run first quarterback, and that's just not the case. But what I think, I mean, what Steichen has always said is the offense needs to be tailored to who's playing quarterback, and you saw that firsthand last year when Richardson went down. The offense made a seismic change to Gardner Minshew. It was about getting the ball out quickly. It was about timing throws, and not allowing the rush to get to Minshew. I think you're gonna see differences with this offense. You're definitely gonna see more shots taken. The Colts have really focused on those explosive plays all throughout training camp and being more aggressive, taking shots down the field. Anthony Richardson's probably going to hold the ball a little bit longer. You're definitely going to see more quarterback run. That's pretty obvious. But you're going to see a lot more wrinkles in this offense than you did a season ago, because Shane Steichen is tailoring the offense to Anthony Richardson's strengths. There's no way that he's only going to force him to be a pocket passer and say, you've got to do this, this, and this. Shane Steichen has already commented on it, that he likes that Richardson isn't a robot, and saying, well, you told me to hit this read, so that's where I did. Where Richardson, if he sees that, he'll say, well, that guy's covered, but I see a better, or this guy may be open, but there's a better option, in a different place, and he'll go to that. That's what Shane Steichen wants to see. He doesn't want a robot at quarterback. He wants a playmaker at quarterback, and that's why I think that Steichen really is the perfect NFL coach for Anthony Richardson, because he's going to tailor the offense. He's not going to try to put a square peg into a round hole. He's going to allow him to do what he does best, and empower him to do that. Put the confidence in the young quarterback to go out there and just play free and play fast. And I think that's what the Colts are trying to do, and have been trying to kind of establish all throughout training camp.
Sure.
Yeah, totally agree.
With all that being said, I know you mentioned, obviously they've been running kind of a vanilla offense in the preseason. No one really busts open the playbook whenever they're. Do you expect him to open it, I guess, a little bit? I mean, Anthony Richardson missed a lot of time last year. Do you expect him to kind of open the playbook against Cincinnati, just to get him, just to play the offense he'll be playing in the regular season, or do you expect him to kind of keep it simple?
That's a good question, and then my guess is we'll be probably try to still keep it simple, and that's why these joint practices are for. You open up the playbook in these joint practices, because the only teams last week that got the film from those joint practices were the Colts and the Cardinals. Same thing today. The only teams getting the film from today's joint practice, the Colts and the Bengals. When it's on Thursday night, prime time, prime video, every team in the NFL is going to have access to that film. And I think you guys all know Shane Steichen by now. That guy is never going to give up anything if he doesn't have to. So the Colts are still going to keep it very vanilla. I mean, sure, they're going to still run their staple concepts, but anything that they had that Steichen is saving for the regular season, or any special formations, or any special ways that they're going to use Richardson, say in the quarterback run game with Jonathan Taylor, that's all going to be caught under wraps. They'll still run their core principles and their core concepts, but it's still going to be fairly vanilla until we reach the regular season.
Yes, it should be. Why give away traits or why give away our secrets, right? Well, especially when it don't matter. All these preseason stats about to be washed away.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got the Titans and Jags fans that are 2-0 and they're whatever.
Going to the Super Bowl.
They're going to the Super Bowl.
I mean, Peyton
We won the
Manning,
preseason Super Bowl, baby.
Peyton Manning
Yeah.
went 0-4 in almost every single
year.
preseason back in the 2000s. So again, preseason wins and losses mean absolutely nothing. It's more about evaluating the talent that's on the field.
Absolutely. So I guess on the flip side, Gus Bradley, he called the least amount of blitzes, and I've kind of harped on this. He had the lowest blitz rate last year. The Colts were great at sacking the quarterback, but their pressure rate was, I can't remember, like 29, 30 or something like that. I can't remember exactly where they were at. So do you think, and this is not just about the Bengals, do you think overall, especially after drafting Latu, that he might up that blitz rate, up that pressure rate? Or do you think he'll kind of keep running the same defensive sit back, bend, don't break kind of deal?
So I think I honestly think it could go one of two ways. And the way I'm leaning that it goes is I don't think Gus Bradley is really going to change much simply because they have Latu. And the reason for that is why blitz when you have a defensive line that can continually get pressure when you're only rushing 4. And what Latu has shown throughout training camp, and he's been unguardable, unblockable at times. So if Latu gets going, Kwity Paye has very noticeably taken a leap. You got DeForest Buckner, you know what he's bringing. You got Grover Stewart in there. I don't want to discount Tyquan Lewis, who was one of the leaders in pressure percentage for the Colts last year. Dio Dangbo in a contract year, he needs to take another step forward. So if this Colts defensive line is now getting consistent pressure with only rushing 4, then I don't think there's a need to really blitz, because that's what the whole Gus Bradley system is predicated on, is just rushing with 4, giving pressure with 4, so you can keep as many guys back there in coverage as possible. Now, do I think in certain situations it should call for that? Yeah, I do think so. And I do think that Gus Bradley could be more of a chameleon on defense, where he isn't so predictable. But I think at this point, Gus Bradley is what Gus Bradley is. I don't really see him changing. So the hope is that with this newfound pass rush, to build on what the Colts did last year, adding Latu into the mix, and a very underrated part of all of this is adding Charlie Partridge to the mix. Excuse me. Charlie Partridge has already had a fantastic impact on this Colts defensive line. The competitiveness, the get off, some of the different looks that the defensive line is giving, the different positions that Partridge is placing some of these guys on the defensive line. I'm telling you, this Colts defensive line looks even better than they did last year. And I'm expecting, I don't know about the sack numbers, if they're going to go up too much. Again, 51 sacks was 5th in the NFL. That's a really good number. What I can tell you is I would be shocked if the pressure rate for this Indianapolis Colts defense didn't take a step up as well, especially when you bring in a pass rusher like Latu, who has been getting consistent pressure pretty much all of training camp, and did so again today against the Cincinnati Bengals, getting a would-be sack of Joe Burrow.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Colts fans got to be excited about Latu. I mean, yeah, you going anything other than a skill position at the first round is never sexy, but oh my God, Latu has been that. He has been sexy just from what I've seen. I'm very excited.
Absolutely.
He's been I think everything that the Colts wanted in that 15th overall pick and more. He's just different than anything the Colts have on this roster. His get off and the way he can bend around an offensive tackle, again, just nothing that this Colts team has. And I think because of how polished he is, because of the work ethic, people need to remember that this guy had the game of football taken away from him. And while he could have just rode off into the sunset, he could have actually went out and had a very lucrative rugby career. I wrote about this when I was doing my rookie file series over the summer, really getting to know each one of these rookies. Talked with multiple people close to Latu, that he really could have went out and had a very a very good rugby career. Didn't want to do that. His dream was to play football, and having that taken away, still going out there and working back, and not taking no for an answer. This guy's going to make use of every single opportunity that he has, and he's not going to take a single day in the NFL for granted. And I think that's what really won over the Colts, and being able to pass all the medical exams that they put him through. I honestly think I would be at this point shocked if Leatu Latu doesn't work out for the Colts and reach his full potential.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of story, I mean, that shows the kid's got heart, right? And that heart is going to keep him driving whenever everyone tells him he should quit and he should stop. He's just going to keep on going. I mean, like I said, I'm very, very excited to see what this kid can do for us, hopefully for a very long time.
Very long time. I don't want to say he is Dwight Freeney, but I see a lot of his play style from Freeney, like that. Just how quick he is off the line, how he's able to get around defenders, just the way he moves. He shouldn't be able to move.
The way he
that
bends,
way.
I mean, to get in his body that way. Yeah.
Like there were times where Mathis, they were almost at a 90-degree angle around the defender. It was insane. And
we were spoiled for so long on the ends, and now, if we can get the other one secured up, I think we're going to be in great shape.
A good
our middle, we're solid.
A good comp for Leatu Latu is a mixture of TJ Watt and Trey Hendrickson. Not comparing him to TJ Watt, and by no means am I saying he's going to be TJ Watt. But when you watch their games, the tenacity, the ability to bend, the ability to stack counters on top of one another, and to get around offensive tackles, and how quickly they get to the quarterback, see a lot of the TJ Watt and a lot of Trey Hendrickson in Latu's game.
And that motor, like TJ Watt's known for having a high motor. You can't teach that. You can't coach that. That's natural born. And it's good to see that Latu has that. Makes you real, real happy.
And worst case with Latu, it's like I think the first snap he had, he was double teamed on the play. And then I think he only had 8 snaps or something like that in that first preseason game. And I clearly saw a holding on him. The guy had his arm wrapped all the way around him. He was doing that side rush around him. I don't think that's clearly a hold. They didn't call it, but I'm like, in an NFL regular season, that like 90% of the time that's going to get called. So I feel like he's going to draw a lot of that out too.
He gave Garrett Bowles fits throughout those couple of drives that he was in, and Garrett Bowles is a starting left tackle, an upper end starting left tackle in the NFL. And when Sean Payton is already dedicating 3 guys on one play, a tight end chip, Garrett Bowles on him, and then a running back chip on Leatu Latu's first play, that's telling you something of what coaches around the league already think of Leatu Latu.
100%.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how they scheme for him. But you got to think, like, Latu, Quiddipe, Buckner, and Grover. I mean, man, how do you scheme against that? That's dangerous.
It's going to keep some coordinators up at night for sure.
Hey, I'm just glad they're playing for us.
So, since we are, I guess sprinting into the regular season, just less than 3 weeks away, kind of wanted to talk about the Texans since they are, home opener, and the Colts haven't won a home opener in 8-9 years, something like that.
Colts haven't won an opener period since 2014.
Oh God, it's been 10 years.
Andrew Luck beat the Terrell Pryor led Oakland Raiders that day in 2014. So it's been quite a long time since this Colts team has won on opening day.
I mean, we're gonna have our hands full, that's for sure. Texans are building quite a squad over there, but I mean, our defense is looking really strong, so I think they can go toe to toe with that powerful offense that Houston's built.
And speaking of that offense, and I feel like I know what your answer is going to be, but what about the Texans scares you the most?
That's a tough question because they can hit you from multiple levels. I do think that it's going to be predicated, obviously, CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud is a phenomenal quarterback. He was my quarterback 1 in 2023, and he proved why in his rookie campaign. Now, I think again the biggest thing is going to be getting pressure on CJ Stroud, because too many times, especially in that week 1 game, CJ Stroud sat back there with all day to throw and was able to hit his receivers. So it's kind of twofold. Being able to get consistent pressure on CJ Stroud. Why did the Colts go out and get Charlie Partridge and Leatu Latu? It was because they needed a more consistent pressure on starting with the quarterbacks in their division with CJ Stroud, Trevor Lawrence, and Will Levis, and not allowing those guys to sit back there and pick apart their defense. And then again, it's going to be how does this Colts team also adjust to a wide receiver core that has, Stephon Diggs. And while Stephon Diggs maybe not be the all pro that he used to be, still a very good wide receiver. Nico Collins coming off of a career year. In that week 18 game against the Colts, the Texans didn't have Tank Dell. Having Tank Dell in the slot there against Kenny Moore, that's going to be a hell of a matchup to watch on that day. But really, seeing Jalen Jones and Juju Brents going up against Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs, the communication on the back end, so you don't allow a bomb touchdown to Nico Collins or to allow Stephon Diggs to get behind the defense. This Texans offense is not only good because of the talent, but just they can attack you in multiple ways. We haven't even gotten to Joe Mixon, who, while again, probably not a top 10 running back anymore, in my opinion, still can get the job done. So the multiple ways that they can attack you, this Colts defense has to be ready for it.
Absolutely. That was probably going to be my answer. I think that combination of CJ Stroud, their receivers, and I really like Juju. I think we have some fine safeties, some fine linebackers for the stuff underneath. But man, those receivers make me nervous against our corners, young corners. So I think that'll be a fun matchup. But like you said, they're going to have to get pressure. They're going to have to get after Stroud. Otherwise,
I don't think that's going to be a problem, though. I mean, the only two they're going to have. I mean, Laramie Tunsil, kind of a shell of himself, and then Titus Howard on the right tackle spot. I don't think we're going to have a problem with the pressure. I mean, the Colts are in the bottom quarter of on offensive line, so they're not looking too good on offensive line. So that should help us a lot getting after CJ Stroud.
I guess that's kind of an obvious answer to that, but what do you think the Colts will have the edge? And I feel like I know where you're going to go with it, but.
Well, I think honestly, the edge is on the offensive side of the ball, because if you remember last year, the Texans defense really couldn't stop in week 2 the run game with Anthony Richardson. I mean, he had 2 touchdowns in a quarter and change, and was on his way to routing the Houston Texans before he suffered that concussion. And even when Richardson went out, Zach Moss had a really good game against the Texans. Then you fast forward to week 18, Jonathan Taylor runs for almost 200 yards against the Texans, and Taylor came out of the game for a little bit because he was banged up again in that game last year. So. And the Texans, I mean, yes, they did add Danielle Hunter, who is a fantastic pass rusher, but they didn't really address the middle of the field. And that's where most of those runs came from last year with Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor, was right down the middle of that defense. And if the Colts can really slow things down, get the running game going consistently, this game doesn't have to turn into a shootout between Anthony Richardson and CJ Stroud. And in fact, if the Colts can get a lead by using that run game with Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor, then the Texans do have to play from behind. And they're going to be throwing the football, and it allows that defensive line that you're putting so much stock in to pin their ears back and go get the quarterback. So I think that's probably the biggest advantage that this Colts team has is Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor, and what they were both able to do in the separate contests against the Houston Texans. You combine that together, that's a pretty potent punch on offense. And not only that, then you have to combat the play action off of that. So I think, if anything, that's where the Colts are going to try to attack the Texans the most, is with that running game right down the middle of the field with Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, there's nothing in the middle of the field. I mean, you've got Will Anderson on one side, and you've got Danielle Hunter on the other side, and then I think their real strength within Houston is their secondary. So that leaves that big gap right there in the middle, like you're talking about. You just eat all day, just slants. I mean, once Downs gets healthy, we meet him again down the road. Oh my God! But yeah, you're right. That middle of that defense for the Texans, very, very vulnerable. We should definitely look to attack that.
Now the Texans did add Azeez Al-Shaair, but the Colts, he was with the Texans, the Titans last season, was with San Francisco before that, and he really didn't have a big impact when the Colts faced both of those teams against the run. He can certainly have an impact. He's a good linebacker, but do I think he is someone that can absolutely change this defense into turning it into stopping being the run stopper that the Texans are probably looking for? I'm not sure about that.
Yeah,
Fair enough. Yeah, I completely agree. I think that combination of, and we talked about in a few episodes ago on Unstable about the respect that you're going to have to give Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor, that attempt, like on those, those run options, those read options, is you're going to have a guy spying on Richardson. Is he gonna run out with it? Is he handing it off to Taylor? You're going to have to dedicate somebody to
yeah.
both.
Who do you cover? Who do you look at?
I think that's definitely a huge strength.
Oh, we're gonna be dangerous on the goal line.
Yeah, it'll be fun, and we got some big tight ends, man.
Yeah, I mean, the dude's as tall as the Empire State Building. Just throw it up, and he'll go get it. Yeah, that's a rare human to see like that.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to see Anthony Richardson for the first time in a regular season game since week 5?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little less than a year, since we've seen him in a meaningful game. How do you think he's going to do? I mean, coming back from shoulder injury, first meaningful game. How do you think he's going to do?
Yeah, I wouldn't expect him to light the world on fire. I think that's putting too much pressure and too many, too high of expectations on Anthony Richardson. However, I think the Colts are going to have a very calculated game plan for him. Again, this will be really his first time with Jonathan Taylor. They only played 2 snaps together last season. Having Jonathan Taylor out there is going to be different. Having another year and more timing in chemistry with the likes of Michael Pittman Jr. and Alec Pierce. We'll see if Josh Downs ends up suiting up for week 1. Adonai Mitchell is going to play a role as well. But I think Colts fans are kind of kidding themselves if they're expecting Richardson to go out there and throw for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns against the defending AFC South champs. I think you could probably expect, I don't know exact stat line, but if Richardson's able to go out there and throw for 200 yards and a touchdown and get 1 rushing touchdown as well, combined with what you think Jonathan Taylor is going to do on the ground, or maybe get a second touchdown pass from Anthony Richardson, I think you'd be very, very happy with that. And it probably leads to a Colts victory if he goes out there and plays like that, takes care of the football, and is able to just have a solid game. Again, he doesn't need to light the world on fire. He doesn't need to put the team on his back. You have Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman, Josh Downs. You have guys on that side of the field that can help you out. So he doesn't have to do it all himself. Play within the offense, but just play, again, kind of what we were talking about earlier. Play fast, play free, and I think he will do just fine.
Oh, well said. I mean, you hit the nail right on the head. That's exactly right.
For sure. It'll be Latu's first game. He's obviously a rookie. How disruptive do you think he's going to be able to be? I feel like the Texans will definitely bring help to try and block him, but how big of an impact do you think he'll have against the Texans?
I think Charlie Partridge is going to put him in opportunistic places on the defensive line. Do I think he's just going to line up one-on-one against Laramie Tunsil the entire game? No, I don't. I think you're going to see him some snaps over on that going up against Titus Howard, going up against the right tackle. And I'm sure the Texans are going to send, a chip his way, whether it's Dalton Schultz chipping him, whether it's Joe Mixon chipping him as he goes out for a route. But I do think that Latu is good for at least a few pressures. Again, I don't think he's with the way that the Colts rotate their defensive line. There no more of the days of Freeney and Mathis like playing every single snap out there. They want to continually rotate these guys to keep them fresh. So, and as of right now, Latu isn't even the starter. Tyquan Lewis is the starter at that Leo spot. Do I think Latu should be the starter? Yes, I think because the more he's out there, the more reps he's getting, the more disruptive he's going to be. But I do think that he can be disruptive and play a role of helping get consistent pressure on CJ Stroud. Does he get sack number one in game number one? I'm not so sure about that. Obviously, it would be great for Latu if he was able to get that. But I think that at the very least, you can expect him to be getting consistent pressure. And I don't think that Laramie Tunsil is going to be able to stymie him every single time. Latu's going to have his chances to affect CJ Stroud.
Yeah, I mean they can't forget about Kwity Paye either. I mean if you're gonna put all your attention over there, like I said, if Latu starts, right, which he should, let's be real about it, right? I mean 15th overall pick, but Kwity Paye was a 21st overall pick. You cannot forget about him either. So if you're gonna focus here, you better be ready for Kwity Paye coming at you.
And even if Latu doesn't start, he's probably still going to get at least 50% of the snaps. I think on the high end, Buckner and Paye last year were getting Buckner's an anomaly. He gets 75% of the snaps, but Paye was around 65 to 70. It's around what Samson Ebukam was. So the starters are kind of the core starters like a Buckner and a Paye will probably still be around that. But I think Latu and Tyquan Lewis, you can expect those guys to probably be around 50-50.
Yeah, at least for what would you say, the first 3-4 weeks until maybe Latu even takes over the starting gig?
I think I think that's probably just how it's going to be. I don't know if it's all season, but it'll just depend on how Latu adjusts to the game when we get to live snaps. And Tyquan Lewis is out there playing and doing well. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. If you're Charlie Partridge and Gus Bradley, so it's all going to depend on the play of each one of those guys. And how disruptive and how big of an impact Latu is actually having on the game. But again, because the Colts are consistently rotating their defensive linemen, having 8 and 9 guys get a good chunk of snaps on game day, you're not going to see these guys out there for 70, 80 snaps. You're probably looking at around 60% of the snaps to 65 for the starters, and then kind of goes down as we go. But the more Latu is disruptive and is making an impact out there, the more he's going to play. That's just obvious.
Yeah, I mean he wasn't a small school guy. I mean he's used to playing big time talent. I wouldn't expect it to take too long for him to catch up to the game, because obviously every rookie has that learning curve. But I wouldn't expect it to be too long.
Sure. So I think we're nearing the end. We're almost to the hour mark, and with that, I wanted to ask you one last question, and it's kind of the whole season. Anthony Richardson stays healthy. The core stays healthy. What is the ceiling for this team? What do you think their win-loss record will be at the end of the year? In the homer in me wants
we're going to win the Super Bowl, Jeff.
We're going to win the Super Bowl, baby. But I mean, just without the homer part, what do you think the win-loss will be? Just looking at it, no major injuries.
I think if you're looking at their ceiling, I would say it's probably 11-6. At an 11-6 season, I think that would end up winning the AFC South crown. Is it enough for the 1 seed in the first round bye? Probably not. But if at 11-6, you're probably looking at the 2 or 3 seed. I really think that. And then once you get into the playoffs, I mean, that's all you have to do, because the teams can get hot and cold so easily in the playoffs. It's just who's playing well at the right time. And like you said, if everything goes well, Anthony Richardson stays healthy, you see a resurgence from Jonathan Taylor back into a top 3 running back in the NFL. This offense starts to hit on all cylinders. The guys that the Colts are expecting to take a step forward. Then yeah, I think this Colts team can be a really dangerous team in the AFC, and certainly win the AFC South. I know that a lot of the national media is talking about the Texans, and deservedly so. They won the division last year. They have a fantastic young rookie quarterback, and they made some really, really good additions on both sides of the football. But the Colts were a Gardner Minshew pass away, really just a little bit better pass from Gardner Minshew away from winning the AFC South without their starting quarterback for most of the season and without their star running back for half of the season last year. So the Colts aren't as far away as what some of the national media may think. And I think this AFC South race is going to, again, come down to the very end. But if the Colts are able to get things rolling and you see Anthony Richardson really put it all together, this team's going to be dangerous. Very, very dangerous, I would say, in January.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think the 2 things that's going to depend on the AFC South is both Colts-Texans games.
Oh, I can absolutely agree with that. I really think it'll be kind of the Colts-Texans all through the year. Obviously, the Colts getting the edge. That's might be a little.
Imagine how young both these teams are, and for us to be able to get to see, like, as we go through the years, all these guys get better and better and better, and just this rivalry just keep going and going. I mean, this could be the game to watch twice a year for the next 7 to 10 years, hopefully, with these 2 quarterbacks.
Oh, at least.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a fun ride. And fellas, buckle your seatbelts.
Oh, it's gonna be fun, man. These guys can throw. Anthony Richardson has a cannon arm. They're both good passers. They're both great rushers, man. It'll be a lot of fun, hopefully, for a lot of years.
Yeah. I mean, and Stroud. I mean, he's not the athlete on the same level as Richardson is, but the guy throws darts. He's accurate. I mean, he's one of the most accurate quarterbacks I've scouted in Dynasty in so long. But then again, Richardson, super athlete. So Richardson can do a lot of things that Stroud can't, but Stroud can do a lot more things that football that Richardson can't. That's why I'm excited to see how the future goes for these 2 franchises.
Oh, I agree. I think that's about it. We just crossed the hour mark. So if you're still here, please remember, like, share, subscribe. Head over to Horseshoe Huddle. Andrew Moore, thank you again so much. We really appreciate your time for coming on and chopping it up with us for Colts football. Definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for taking the time out. Andrew, let everybody know where they can find you at, man.
Well, hey, Jeff and Justin, I really appreciate it. It was a fun conversation. You guys can go follow me on X at Andrew Moore NFL. And then obviously all my written work is on horseshoehuddle.com for SI. And then the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel, Horseshoe Huddle, and wherever you listen to your podcast for the Horseshoe Huddle podcast that my co-host Drake and I do every week, gearing up for the season. It's gonna be a very fun year, a very interesting year, as it always is, covering the Indianapolis Colts. So I think it's going to be a lot of ups and downs, like always. Nothing ever goes smoothly for this team, but Colts football is exciting again, which is really what you want to see, and then it makes for a fun fall here in Colts country.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, we look forward to seeing you again, Andrew. Maybe we can have you on again.
Oh
yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot, guys.
We'd be happy to jump on too if you need anybody.
Yep.
Guest on too.
Later, buddy.
I'd be more than happy to do it. Thank you so much. Thank you, Justin, for your time as well. As always, we appreciate it. And thank you for watching. We'll see y'all next week.